What's going on, everybody? Justin Thomas here with HaxDogma. This is Before the Dust Settles, and we are live. I think we've tried this a few times, so I don't know. We'll do it live.
Good to go.
We're good to go. All right. How you doing, Hax? How'd you like the episode? Welcome everybody that's here. Thanks for coming. Spread the link. And
Good, man. It was an awesome episode. And just a precursor to kind of everything. We're probably going to mispronounce the names, and it's okay to voice that we suck. It's okay. But yeah, just bear with us if we don't say it right. And if you want to come on and say it right for us, if you want to be like the official person, you're more than welcome. Anybody. Oh, did I lose Justin? I have lost Justin. Hello, everybody. This is the Justin Thomas Show. I'm actually both people. I've reincarnated myself while still alive, and I am now Justin Thomas as well. Oh man, I don't know if I can stop the stream.
I'm back.
Hey,
Yeah.
there we go.
Well, when I heard you say that you were going to mispronounce the name, I was like, I won't be a part of this. I took a stance, people. That wasn't me just clicking out of it because I'm got a million tabs open. But yeah, I'm back. I hope that went well. I just bounced out on you, buddy. How's everybody doing? And Hax, I'm going to give it over to you because I need to get my situation set up here.
Sure, certainly. So starting off, we come to, and also leave some feedback about the new layout. What we're going to do with what you're seeing right now is kind of what we want moving forward. Not us as the main part of this, but more of a picture that we can relate to and that the audience can see. That way, just so we can kind of be a more interactive thing, a more visual thing.
That's why I left. Yeah, so I didn't want to be hogging the screen.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, do leave feedback on that. So starting off with this episode, we come to William, riddled with bullets, still crawling through the mud. I thought he was going to be picked up by Emily. I was completely off on that. It really does make sense that he would be picked up by the Ghost Nation. I think that it was really well done, and something that's really interesting is like the dynamic of them remembering him and what he's done in his previous life. If you think about the moment when when he's talking about Lawrence riding down Ghost Nation Braves in their winter grounds, it's kind of like foreshadowing what we're gonna see here.
Yeah, and I just want to let you know, Hax, that I am pulling this up because I cannot see because you're running it through OBS, so I will have a slight delay on the images. I'm just accessing them now. Just, I have to watch it through the YouTube feed, which will be behind.
It's not too far behind, though, is it?
No.
Okay.
I'm just getting to it now. I'm just so far behind. Yeah, I thought it was really, in that whole line of, we always, I think, make things so much more complicated than they need to be. It's like, you only live as long as the last person that remembers you. It makes sense, because especially, with them always getting rolled back, that it's like, yeah, and he was able to, and I know we'll get to this, I'm jumping ahead, but survive for so long without, getting brought in. And you only live as long as those that remember you because they get wiped every single time they die. So, their attachment to their stories and their loved ones and their willingness to actually die and accept their fate is what's actually ascending them. I think that's interesting. A nice parallel with the humans who are trying to live forever.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let me see here. So they do find him. They find him on the beach. Bring him back to camp here. Kind of dump him off, and the main character here and the little girl have kind of an interaction. Acknowledging that she is witnessing the world around her, not just a passenger. In someone else's thing. She is awake in a sense. Now I don't know. Do you want to speculate about how far along she is, or maybe if she is even really awake? I mean, we don't know much about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because she seems to be a little bit further along than others. She is, having memories, but as we've seen, Akecheta, somebody tell me how to pronounce it here, that he is willing to walk them through the process like he did with, like you said, I started with my people first. So I see it as we really can't know one way or another, but he is at least starting that process with her. And she seems to be further along than, she's on par with the rest of them. Everybody's further than Teddy. She's a few years out of Teddy.
Teddy is the baseline about how to fail the maze. Yeah.
Yeah. Teddy doesn't pass that test. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's, did you have any, the only thing, and I never played the, this person has to be this person game. I hate the game. But for a moment there, I thought that was possible that Maeve's daughter was his love interest, that the consciousness had been, or the, memories had been switched and they put her into another host body. And we were going to see like that connection. I quickly lost it, but I didn't know, what happened to his love interest. And we do find out in the episode, but I think that it made sense. And we all kind of saw this coming, that the Ghost Nation, being outliers, are going to be able to, have less fingerprints all over them from Delos. And it's the incompetence of Delos that helps them, stay off the grid and actually not get rolled back every single other day.
I one of the things when they were showing like everything that they were going through, and how far he was reaching out to the borders of the park, and the interactions with other characters, from a technical standpoint, we see techs acknowledge when hosts have these cognitive dissonance. So why was he able to go so long without being caught was beyond me. And then, of course, at the time, that was what's going through my head. And then, of course, the next scene is literally the love interest being taken away. I was like, oh, my God. Okay.
Yeah. And, so we do have a reference to the time. We know that we have about 10 years after Arnold's death that he's able to survive without being taken in. So, and then we have the encounter with Ford, with leaving it ambiguous after that, because he says, watch for a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, we have to, I guess, rule it out to just the fact that they were still trying to put things back together after, the Arnold incident, because it's just mass incompetence. It's like, how do they know when Dolores is like way off, or just off her narrative, and we see Stubbs getting, notified in season 1, and then he was able to survive a decade. That's one hell of an oversight. Delos QA, I mean, just not competent whatsoever. I mean, I don't know. You think that they would develop hosts to work some of those jobs and get it done right, but yeah.
So back to the main story, we get the flashback from the daughter's perspective to, her storyline with Maeve, and then the daughter getting the stone that has this this maze inscribed onto the rock. And what's interesting is like their knowledge of this. They're using this symbol really to unlock more. Like where it was just a symbol of the journey, but it actually appears to be unlocking. Like it's a nonverbal command. It's something that Arnold programmed, that when they witness this, then they trigger something similar to the violent delights phrase. Yeah,
I like that, but I'm gonna just to play devil's advocate. I'm just gonna say, like, think about it. Like, I mean, I think that it's a little bit of both, probably. But think about this. I think it's more just like a symbol. Like, it literally probably could be anything. But that symbol, they would remember they saw it in their last build, so it would bring them back and help them access the other memories. You know what I mean? It's just a reference. Yeah, it is. Yeah, perfect. A totem. So but I don't know. And I had my crackpot theory about it being like the violent delights. So I don't know why I'm disagreeing with that now. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's just more like a totem, and you can see that. The crop circles as well. We had the scene from season 1, and we see the reason for it, that they are trying to spread the knowledge.
Yeah. So after that, it comes to Lee dropping off Maeve at the Mesa. So this entire story kind of threw me off. I thought that he would. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I guess what he did was what he should have done for his character. But I thought that where he left off was, maybe wanting to help more. Like we see his remorse later on in the episode, but at the same time, what did you expect? You brought the host and made such a big fuss about how this is the most important freaking host. What did you expect to happen?
I mean, it's just he had his break from his cowardness for a brief moment, and did what we all think we do, would always be the hero. And then I mean, I guess it's a realistic narrative. I mean, he's scared, and then he had that moment of bravery where he like a hero brought her in there, but also the reason she shot is because of him, like you said, the remorse. But I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, Lee's character is he's just starting to get a little character, if you know what I mean. So I mean, I don't have any issues with this. I mean, yeah, it adds up. It's typical Lee.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So more of the interaction with the two here. Then I really like the way that they developed this story. It was a telling of a story through the telling of a story from one to another, right? And I guess it makes sense. It's not like a crazy literary device, but it really was well done. Being able to see that, being able to be reminded that this was us just being walked through the perspective of her being told this story was really cool, and I really enjoyed that.
Well, yes, your wife, who I'll give credit to, before we went live, was just saying in the background, that this people liked it because they told the story like in the most linear fashion that Westworld can get. This was like as missionary as Westworld goes, and there's something to be said for a good old fashioned missionary, linear storyline. And I really liked it. We only jumped around a little bit, and it made sense, and it took the having Ford as his motives are far more clear now. We do know that his interests still lie with the host, because it was left more unclear with our last his last actions that we witnessed, whether he was taking Bernard for a ride for just selfish reasons, or if he still was sticking to what he said in season 1. And anything, how I feel about this, anything to take Ford's fingerprints off everything betters this story for me. It makes this show more enjoyable. I like the chess master thing, but it is a story about people developing through their stories and through their loved ones, and having Ford just control everything doesn't really make it mean anything. So it was good. I think it was really well done.
I think so too. So one of the first questions that we have here is from Carrie. Hey, Carrie. She asks, what is Dr. Ford doing? So, I mean, I assume that you're referring to kind of that entire scene, and we'll talk about that more later. But the big takeaway is that he acknowledged that he's known about this character going through this journey, and acknowledged that maybe he is one of the first, and maybe, just maybe, been the inspiration to kind of put the Reverie Code back into play in the final, or in the start of season 1, because it is 35 years after the original loss of his friend. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it just makes the story so much better, because Delos, sorry, everybody hates it when I say it like that. They are definitely holding back the host with rolling them back, and the hosts have been taking measures this whole season, whether you agree with how they're going about it, to find themselves and truly be free. Destroying the cradle was one way of doing that. It's the acceptance of death, just like, and I think Ford is taking it, and we see Ford, I think, almost take a note. I want to know what you think about this, Hax, from them, and as he accepted his own death and to go into the cradle and accept a form that wasn't his human body. Like James Ellis, he was trying to escape death so much that he didn't live. Towards the end, he didn't care that everybody he knew was going to die. He just wanted to live. When you see our main character of this story wanting nothing but his loved ones, and that's how they're progressing. So their goals are more pure and less selfish. And Ford, they slipped up, and he was just astonished. I think, Carrie, if you're referring to the scene where he had them frozen, he had frozen the hosts there, the Ghost Nation hosts, and he was examining them, and he had noticed, obviously, the maze tattooing or engraving, whatever, on the inner skull and scalp, sorry, and he took note that this failed process that he had tried to forcefully put onto the these beings was working, but it wasn't working in quite the way that he thought. But they found a way to make it work. This idea of the maze and finding its center, but they were adapting it. And he told him, he goes, just wait a little bit longer and watch. He wasn't, as we've seen with Bernard, we don't know what's going on exactly, but he's being very heavy handed. He's like, oh, you just can't handle this, so I'm taking the driver's seat. So is that really free will if every time you can't handle something, Ford jumps into your consciousness and takes over? This makes me like the story a lot better because it shows that Ford is still having pure intention and sticking to what he said in season 1.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. And the big thing with that is, it kind of develops, or the scene with Ford kind of develops as how villainous he can be. I mean, he didn't have to go through all of the theatrics of having that set up the way that it was, or I mean, it was just him examining, and it couldn't have been anyone else helping him because, of course, what's revealed in that situation. So the theatrics of witnessing that entire thing, I mean, it really shows Ford is like, holy shit. I mean, he had blood on his nice undershirt there, and it was just a great scene.
Do you think that he was kind of doing that to kind of like put the spotlight, the bat signal in the air to try to get his attention so he would approach him? That maybe that was the reason for the extravagance, of the process?
No, I mean, if he wanted to call him there, he would have just called him there. I think maybe
But that goes against it. Wants him to make his own decisions. So I don't know.
I mean, at the time, we don't know that he wants that. And in fact, I was hoping that what we would see from that scene is actually the side of Ford before he was committed to, the journey to get host consciousness a reality. Because we know that there's a period when, after Arnold kills himself and he doesn't recognize that what Arnold did was, the right decision. And the turning of that character is really what I wanted to see. So what we actually see is sometime after that, after he's already come up with the plan. Yeah. After he's already come up with a plan to get hosts to consciousness, just based on the dialogue. But all in all, still a great scene. So coming back to the main story then, we have...
Well, and I want to add one thing to that. We see him, he makes a decision. I think we see the turn of him in that scene, though. He's come to the conclusion that it wasn't a lost cause, and it is working. It's just not working in the way that he planned because he had already given up, and now this is like the resurgence of his faith in this process. Is just and he tells him, when they come for me, you'll know. Meaning, now I'm going to make my sacrifice. So I think we do kind of see the turn, but we see the very, very end of it. You're right.
I mean, I don't think we can call that the turn, though, because he already had that whole thing planned out, and kind of what he was doing. What's really interesting about that scene is the term "the Deathbringer," but of course we'll talk about that here momentarily. So we come back, and we learn that the host has now witnessed both of the deaths of the creators, essentially. First with Arnold and him finding the body in the middle of the town. First walking over to this maze and now having it as something engraved into his head, now that he recognizes that this is an important thing. Let's see here. So then it switches back, and we see the main storyline, and the character has now gone to carving this into everything. It's stuck in his head. He can't get it out. He doesn't know what it means, so he's just implanting it into everything he can possibly see. Now, this kind of does go against the fact that maybe it is like a non-verbal command, visual command. Because they are putting it in so many places, and the other hosts that we know of aren't awakened yet. But it is interesting.
Well, it's the significance of the story. Like you're talking about how this is, I really enjoyed this episode because it was about the power of the narrative. So it was a story that he put behind this symbol that made it, so significant and so powerful. And, obviously that is a Native American symbol for, the path of life or whatever I have in one of my videos. So obviously it's, it fits the theme as well. But yeah, I think it's the significance that he assigns to it, which is important for a personal journey, like to have your own growth.
Yeah, definitely. So at some point, he's repurposed. He comes back as the more painted Ghost Nation, and still is witnessing this event. Let me see here. What's interesting is that when it updates for you, Justin, but the scene with the sand, right? So a lot of people have brought this up because of the trailer, but for there to be such a desert area next to a mountainous range that produces snow, I mean, what do you think that means for the climate control and in the climate control that Elsie talks about? Could that be legitimately climate control of the entire island and including the outside?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that I always kind of did, it's definitely more than air conditioning people. But yeah, I mean, it could be because we never see cloudy skies. We only see a helicopter once. Well, we see the rainfall in the Man in Black scene. But you know what I mean? If you pay $40,000 a day, you can't have it just shitstorm on you all day.
Yeah.
So, they have to be controlling it to the fullest extent of their ability, which is as much or as little as you want to assign to that, because we just don't have, we have to assume it's a lot at this point with what we see. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's not, we have Milt, our geophysicist in the chat. Milt, if you could be a brother and, throw out some links. And if anybody has any questions, let us know. I think he's talking about this being maybe possibly a digital projection, but yeah, that's not natural. I'm not a geophysicist, but I'm gonna say that doesn't look right because I'm looking at the picture. It's beautiful,
Yeah,
but it's odd.
it is very beautiful. But for there to be, I mean, we can't say that it's hot, right? Of course, we can deduce that it's probably hot, but for there to be that biome, I mean, that's the whole point. I think we assign it's extremely hot there because of our own experience and what we know about human or real life deserts, but. I mean, if they're just making just giant piles of sand, then I think is me going to Westworld as someone who wants to experience the Sahara Desert for whatever reason, it would kind of take away. And well, I guess we do know that it is kind of hot because of what Logan goes through with the sun, the tortured effect that he comes to.
He's probably also withdrawing. He's been there for a few weeks without his stash, so.
Oh, you think he's shooting up at this point?
Yeah, well, he doesn't seem to be doing well. This might have led to it.
I mean,
yeah,
he's buying paintings just to have sex under him at that point. So, or multi-million-dollar paintings just to have sex under him at that point. So, yeah,
but do you buy paintings for any other reason? What's the point of having them? I agree with him. Yeah, that sand didn't naturally occur. They're not too. They don't have a lot of patience. That sand is not. There's nothing organic but the flies. The flies are the only living thing. Theory. The flies planned it all.
It's this entire thing is just inside of a fly's mind. You remember like in Men in Black when it pans out and it's just a universe inside a marble controlled by aliens in a locker or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes a lot of sense because don't flies see with a lot of different dimensions? You know what I mean? Like with it's like a lot of different octagons that they see through. So it's all these different views that we're seeing. It's all fly. That's what it is, people. It's Lord of the Flies.
Anyway, so the scene with Logan was really well done. I think it was unexpected because I totally thought he was going to be picked up and kind of saved by this band. But no, I mean he was left there, and we see some scarring in the middle of his chest that kind of looks like the branding from the Confederados. Do you remember that?
Yeah. William was pretty heavy-handed with him. And this obviously led to his downfall. We shouldn't be too surprised because although I did like the idea of Logan being a part of a third party, and we'll talk about a third party later. But what did we really expect? That they saved him and he's like, "You guys want to go into business?" They're like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's start it. Let's do a startup. We'll do a Kickstarter, a GoFundMe." And it's a little. We only got 3 episodes left. He wasn't going to start a SpaceX competition. So it doesn't surprise me too much. We do have one question here I want to get to before we miss it. The King of Fiction. What is your guys' opinion of Arnold's original Bicameral Mind experiment being a success? Is this evidence that they are other hosts who didn't go crazy talking to God? I think that, they were trying to go about it in a very stringent, strict way in trying to create something that we don't even know how to actually define. So I think that it led to a good outcome, but I don't think that really, it's not, again, you can't just use that as a blueprint for consciousness because we can't define consciousness truly. You can to yourself and have your own idea what it is, but there's no definition of it. So I don't know, Hax, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, so specifically to the question, yes, I think that Arnold's idea of the bicameral mind as a part of the maze is definitely the journey to consciousness. The only thing that, Ford discusses this, he says the thing that we didn't understand at the time, or that Arnold didn't understand at the time, is that they weren't conscious when Arnold saw them as conscious. And at the time Ford didn't believe that either. But the key was time. So yeah, I mean, if this character has existed witnessing these events and not dying, and still suffering in a sense, because I mean this entire story is the Notebook essentially. So I do think that, yeah, I don't see why not.
But I just would argue that the lack of that, trying to the maze, even it could be any symbol, and it really is just him not getting rolled back. It's just letting the host alone, that lets them evolve every single time, because they're trying to use the host to further the human agenda. So they're rolling them back. So he avoids getting rolled back. I mean, yeah, it's a nice little like starting point. I definitely agree with you, Hax, but I don't think that you can't have a strict plan, a blueprint for this, because that's what Ford's saying is they didn't truly understand it. You can't map that out and force it. As soon as they stopped having their hands on the host, they evolved. As soon as they stopped, interjecting in their lives, it would be my argument for it. But it's just an argument. You can't prove it exists. You can't prove it doesn't.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, in regards to the show defining consciousness, or the show defining wokeness, as another term, in case you don't like that word, I mean, they do kind of declare how it happens. But yeah, I mean, I agree. It's all subjective, and another episode could go by, and the entire thing could change. I mean, with this, we kind of learn the middle story of his, his acceptance of Arnold's plan, and then realizing that he fucked up, and then realizing that it needed more time. So yeah, but I do agree. Let me see. Okay, so coming back, what's interesting is that like this revelation and him being off of his loop kind of leads to them trading with multiple tribes. In the picture you see here, the tribe that they're trading a boar for what looks like harvest goods, it actually has the symbol of the little man on the right teepee there. And I didn't realize this at first, but I mean that's the same insignia of the man in the middle of the maze. Do you have any thoughts on that, Justin, or that's just creative?
Yeah, yeah, Liberty. Yeah, it's a nice scene, but it also shows him making his own stories, and also the nomadic lifestyle is advantageous for a host that doesn't want to get brought into the behavioral. So again, this was all a beautiful mistake. I mean, it ended up being a success, but only after like a lot of variables and a lot of mistakes. So yeah, I mean, but it all ends up working out, but it's on their own terms. And I think it is interesting because he does come across as old love interest, and he has to come to almost what I think me and you were both on the same page with the Maeve. We wanted to see like a little bit of a moral compromise with her and the new mother of her daughter that we didn't get. And we kind of do see a bit of that in the story. They don't flesh it out too much, but we do see her living with others, and him having witnessed that, knowing that she doesn't remember him when he does remember her. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And his decision to respect that. He doesn't skin the guy like he says he's going to do.
Yeah, I expected to see like him just lash out in rage, kind of like not able to understand why, things are the way that they are. But I think they handled it well.
Yeah, but you guys don't understand now, but I would be justified in skinning this dude. I'm gonna give you some carvings and a little bit of a blueprint here, and I'll come back in 10 years and let me know if you guys think it's just.
So the major key is that he recognizes that. Actually, this scene here, I believe the scene that's on the screen now is when they discuss, or when he discusses that he needed to find out where the gods were essentially. And that is an awesome scene. Let me see here. Oh no, when does this take place? This is
him going back with his because they do say, I forget the word they use, but if they use stray, they don't use stray, but it implies that he's even more nomadic than the rest of the culture. Like he is a traveler. He's not, set in any one village. I forget the phrase they use, the word they use. But
Yeah. So this is actually before he that picture from before was him realizing that he's stuck in a loop, and how the world wasn't what it was supposed to be, and then rides out to the outskirts of the park and discovers a new world. Essentially, discovers the door. So this scene was pretty interesting, and this is the closest picture I could get of said quoted door.
yeah, it looks kind of like a hut and kind of like the Edison building. I don't know what to take from this. Like I asked you, I'm like, is that something I'm supposed to recognize? And I don't think that we can guess. What would be your guess, Hax? You're the tech guy. What are we looking at there?
I mean, it looks like, so those columns could either be support columns, like, because this is a giant underground entity. They could also be some kind of storage, like, there's not a really good scale. We don't know how big those are, and when you're standing next to them, so that this circular nature could be similar to those. What's it called? Like the incubation pods in which James Delos was in. So maybe stacks of those in their early days are just setting them up for people to be in them. Because right now, my working theory is that the Valley Beyond is a physical manifestation of the James Delos project, and it may also just be a giant cradle, right? Like another cradle in which they have all the human minds going through trying to attain fidelity
in a huge cold storage as well. You would have to figure, a process. The process would definitely, when they're trying to map the consciousness, as people were saying in the chat, which they are doing, but they have not had full success on transferring it to, the human conscious to the host body. And that's still an argument, whether that's a person or not. And I'm not going to get into it, just falls on your own beliefs. Whether or not that's really you, it's just your memories. Some people would say, and some people would say your memories are you, and your brain is ran just like a computer. So it's fine. But it's subjective, just saying. But yeah, I think it would make sense that, okay, they try to map it. So they would probably have a cold storage of the bodies, right? They had a bunch of James Deloses on hand. So I do tend to believe that by the end of the season, we will see a huge cold storage full of familiar human, forms. Yeah. Because it would make sense to have them ready.
I think maybe not cold storage. I do think we might see like a set. I don't know. I think, like, whenever I think of cold storage, I just think of like the decrepit nature of the one we see in the park. And I mean, Bernard was able to be stored without. Oh, that's really interesting. Why was Why was Bernard's previous builds be able to exist in a non-air conditioning room? And we know not all of them were previous builds, like the first generation. We know that some of them at least had to have been organic material. So how were they able to exist without?
I got two theories on this. Well, number one, somebody's using them because somebody has a huge Bernard fetish that works there, and they are using him for their deviant. But another, a real answer is that, this goes along with the Bernard is Teddy theory, that somebody, that they're not sitting around for too long, that they're being utilized by someone or somebody, a group of people. So yeah, could it be a continuity error? It could, but yeah, you're right. But again, do we really know the temperature of that room, Hacks? Like, truly? I do agree it did look different, but
I guess, it's an underground room, but at the same time, why would they need to let us know air conditioning's been out in that room in the first episode, and kind of show that the hosts have some kind of lack of something in their body, like they're not preserved as they were when they were first put there, in the blue nature of the bodies. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, but
no, it definitely is. Yeah. But they need to get the Charlotte line in there. I always thought you might have skeletons, but didn't know they were yours. That was the quippy line I was speaking of. So they're either going to say that, or they're going to say what temperature it was in there. But it did. I think it does give credence to the theories of somebody else is maybe utilizing those bodies. There's a lot just on hand. That's way too many Bernards. You don't need that many.
Yeah, why would he not incinerate them?
Why wouldn't they clean up the blood from Teresa? They deal with blood all the time, like literally nonstop. Like, there has to be those supplies everywhere. And Teresa's brains were so all over the wall. Ford was like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm not going to really be too worried about CSI.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could just be attributed to part of his plan, right? Because in season one, when I'm sorry, when Ford had him kill himself, my first thought was, wait, why would he do that? Why would he just walk away? He's having Bernard kill himself, and he's the only one that knows Bernard is a host. He's having him do this just to have the body lay there so that he can later come back and pick up the body and repurpose it. Why is he doing that? But of course, everything comes the way it is.
And then he has also a all cards on table moment that didn't really make sense either with the rolling him back. I was like, just a weird scene. But yeah, but beautiful. Yeah, guys, I don't think that, but the idea behind the Teddy Bernard thing is that, that Teddy isn't dead in there. He's in a Bernard shell, and that's Teddy at the moment. But I don't know. He was speaking clearly and didn't look like he was drooling too much. So I don't think it was Teddy.
I hope it's not Teddy. I don't like the idea of them being, I know that you're able to swap minds in theory.
Well, the host definitely will be able to go from shell to shell. I mean, they're not as attached.
In theory, we don't know, if a Dolores mind has existed for so long, and then her being inside of a Bernard body would cause that cognitive dissonance. Now, we don't have anything to suggest that it would, right?
Well, we do have Ford inside of Bernard right now, traveling pretty happily, and we have to figure that the Cradle hosted a whole bunch of rolled back hosts, and that's part of the reason that, because if they had a host go off, too far offline, like one roaming their landscape for a decade, a little bit of a missight on Stubbs, they could easily decommission them if they aren't doing what they want and go with the 5-year rolled back version that's in the Cradle, whatever. There's so many different versions of them. So I would think why wouldn't they be able to? They're not attached to it's very clear they're not attached.
I mean, because if you allow them to just switch bodies whenever you want, then you essentially hit the altered carbon world, right? Of just being able to put your stack into anything. And I don't know if I don't want this from a storytelling standpoint, or because the science fiction of it kind of prevents just being able to swap them out whenever. I don't know. I think maybe just my own personal opinion that I don't want them to be able to do that, because it just makes everything so much more complicated. I mean, we could see 5 seasons, and then the big twist is that, Wyatt's been the character the entire time. Dolores never existed, and we have nothing to go off of because that's the story.
Hey, I think we're doing opposite day, because I'm arguing your usual standpoints. But I mean, I just think that, I hate that more than anybody. I don't want the story. I want the story to be good, people. I don't want it just to be I don't want to do a theory. I thought about doing a Lee Sizemore theory. I'll go off track for a moment here. This past week when I had the time, finally, I was like, well, they've been keeping the same narrative for how many years, within the park. In Lee, is he always getting rejected with all of his pitches like we saw? In season 1, and wouldn't it make sense for him to be a host? But I know he's not a host. It doesn't make sense for the story. It's the conflict right now is he's a human. He's coming around to having compassion for Maeve. It doesn't add up. It doesn't do anything for the story. But wouldn't it be fun if I predicted that and then it was surprising that he was really a host? No, that's just bad narrative. That's just a stupid story. But I guess it's shocking. You know what I mean? But that's the host game. But all I'll say is that seemingly the humans have, we have this attachment to our bodies and all this that the hosts clearly don't. Maeve showcases this. Our main character showcases this in this episode. You know what I mean? They're willing to go to the other side, and they're not as attached to their physical form. We have these limits that, and that's why James Delos goes crazy, because he can't accept his own humanity. He's having that body dysmorphia and all that. But there's again, I don't know why I'm arguing your usual. I think we're switching up. But I don't want that to be the case. I just don't know if we should believe that it's not possible.
Yeah. So, with the systems being, I'm not going to harp on it too long.
No, go. I went on. You go until I ready. Go.
I think possible. Probably not going to happen, because with the systems now being down, realistically, how do you go and put your mind into another?
Well, the host, that's not too unnatural for them would be my only argument.
What do you mean? What do you mean that's never been done?
Well, the hosts can go into another host form. There should be no issue with that. They have their bodies demolished on a regular basis, and they're rebuilt by hacks. So why would they be attached? Why would that be something that would be an anchor for them? They demolish it every day. It's obviously insignificant. I see it as that is part of our limits. As I think the whole idea behind this board says, you know, that they're done. Because there's, I forget the exact quote, somebody that's more intelligent say it in the chat, but it's like you truly, like, as a species evolve when you create, you know, a more evolved species, and they're trying to throttle the host to, like, achieve, you know, immortality. But and we see once they take their dirty hands off them, they start, you know, actually you know, finding themselves and ascending or whatever. So it's just the whole aspect of the hosts don't need a physical form like we do. It's the stories and their memories and the personalities that if they're allowed to, they develop. The same things with us, but we have these attachments, which I'm very attached to my body. I don't want to lose it anytime soon. But I think that there's, you know, I mean, come on, Teddy is shot full of bullet holes every single day. Hacks. What?
Yeah, because it's possible because he's brought back to a Teddy body. Like, I'm not saying that it's not possible at all. I fully believe that this is a science fiction show and that could happen. I just don't think we have the evidence to believe that that they can, because it's never been shown or even discussed. And I think that being able to do that kind of lessens the story. It, like, they're building for individuality and hosts being their own people. So if you're just able to exist as a exist as code and go from body to body, you'd lose that individuality.
You don't. That's only your physical form. You lose nothing of your consciousness and nothing of who you truly are. Who you that you know, if your physical form is truly who you are, then every fat person's a slob and an idiot, and every skinny person is an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, our physical form is not the true. You know. Physical form is what defines us.
Yeah, I understand. We're all brains inside of skulls manipulating bodies, in which could be put onto other people's heads or other people's shoulders and then mapped to the same neurons, and essentially we be able to control other bodies. It's again possible. I don't want it to happen.
I don't want it to happen in the story. Yeah. I just think the host, it's interchangeable, because it's still Dolores if they put her into Angela's host body. It's just she's slightly sexier. I don't know.
Yeah. So the back to the screenshots here. So he actually, the scene where he removes his war paint is really, really interesting, because it's like he's trying to go back to what he was, to kind of re-establish his own identity. You know, not the painted man in which he was supposed to be and designed to be. He's now off script officially and taking, you know, his love interest to where he thinks the Valley Beyond, or where he thinks the door is going to be. And of course they get there and it's covered up.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best example of, you know, if you're looking to because you're right, like, and I've talked about this before, that the show does have to frame how we build sentience and consciousness, you know, conscious to a point. So, you know, it is important, and this is the best showcasing of it. And it's a beautiful story. You know, I think I saw somebody mention something about paint it black, and he took his paint off.
Oh yeah,
you know,
that's good.
Connection doesn't mean correlation, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I like it. I like the heart-shaped box. Utilizing that song. It's been a while since they've, you know, thrown you know, a player piano rendition in.
Very true. Carrie does have a question for us. It says, what do you think Emily has planned for the Man in Black? Do you want to start on this one?
Well, I will say that I'm not too happy on how they just took her word for it, because he was like, this guy's been killing my people for 20, 30 years. And she's like, oh, I'm going to make it worse. He's like, okay. And gave him over. But I think that, again, she says, I'm not going to let you blow yourself up in this place. She believes that would be fine for him, because he's just on a reckless mission and he's become, you know, disillusioned. So I think that making him go back in the real world and spend time with her, in her opinion, is worse than whatever they were going to do. But they did, you know, I mean, they didn't have, we don't have more time for conflict this episode. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I think, yeah, it was kind of weird how this random person just approaches, you know, their prisoner. And it's like, hey, I need him. He's my father. And you're just going to have to take my word. I'm going to do worse than what you're going to do to him. And
give me one example.
Yeah. Give me a PowerPoint. I'm going to let him suffer for the rest of his life. What are you going to do that's worse? You know,
this is my devious, sick plan. I'm a real piece of crap. So you better trump this, buddy.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, you know, what she says is that what she has in plan is far worse. So realistically, what could that be? I mean, if she's trying to like, I don't believe that she is there for him in a positive way. I think that she is legitimately there to end his life because of like when her character was first introduced, it she says, I'm sorry, the man approaches and says, "Are you here hunting or trying to kill something?" And she goes, "Yeah, among other things." And it just pauses there for a little too long for my liking. So I think she is there to cause him harm, as they state. And it wasn't just like her using this to kind of rescue the father. I think they might mask it as that when he has the line about "How did you get me out of here?" that's inevitably coming. But yeah, I mean, what could be worse than that? I mean,
Well, I think that it was truly a way. I mean, I think she's not happy with him, and we don't. I agree. There's true intent yet to be revealed, Hax, but I truly think that she just didn't want to let her father get hacked up, and she doesn't technically have a worse plan. If we do, that'd just be really messed up. I think it's interesting that he goes, "I didn't take the time to learn your language," and she did. That parallel that we see. So why was she aware that I mean, if we're going to talk about the narrative like that, it does have some evidence. We do have some evidence that she might have been privy to more information. And you're right, like they totally introduce Grace slash Emily as somebody that knows more than your average. Yes, she has the symbols, you know what I mean? So if she's not looking for him truly, which I guess we just have to take the show's word that that's not just like passive aggressive or like her not being true with herself, because that's they don't have time for us to deal with like Emily's therapy. So yeah, I mean, like, she has to be there for more. I think that she can be there for more than one reason, though. That she probably does have a larger plan in mind. But when it comes down to it, that's her dad.
yeah, I mean, I guess she could realistically be there to save him, and get him out of the park, like that emotional scene that we have at the fireplace, at night.
Why did Charlotte Hale invite her? You know what I mean? We have to think about that, because that's who she says when Hale.
I mean, I
called
think
me.
she's in on the plan, dude. I think she's in on the plan.
Like like Oceans, whatever, 8 that just came out. It's going to be like a deal like that. It's going to be a big man. It does, yeah, definitely have that.
Well, so going back to what could be worse, right? Face value, say it is true, and she is there to cause him harm. What could be worse? I mean, what comes to mind is like the idea of a life sentence in prison as opposed to a life. The death penalty. If you commit such atrocities that you need to be, recognized for doing such a bad thing, and one party wanting to let you just die out from your wounds or be in such pain from your wounds, and another party stating that it needs to be worse than that, then, I mean, in my opinion, what I think is going to happen is that maybe she wants him to be in the Valley Beyond and kind of go through this torturous, perpetuous torment in which her grandfather was submitted to, because in my opinion that's the only thing worse than death.
Well, yeah, I mean, but number one, her grandfather like signed off for that, actually bought the company with that sole intent, and he was a real bastard from the sound of it. Nobody cared for him too much, and I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be. I think there's something to be said for some people look at like him. She looks at him going, she says it, "You're not going to get to go out in your blaze of glory." She looks at him having to look at his life unlived, because he spent it all in the park, and go back to reality as worse than death for him, because he is so disillusioned with his real life. I think, I think it'd be weird if she took him to like some torturous cell. I think that would be like really dark, and it would just be like, what I mean? Like, I'm not downing on it too much, but you get what I'm saying? Like, just think about overall the arc for that. It's like, wow, she's just really angry with him, and just tortured him. I think that there's something more for maybe her mother being backed up, like a version, with, like we talked about, like a bunch of shell bodies, and she wants to make sure that he abandons this place completely. That means there could be one of her in there. If he's mapping people, you think he'd put his family in there. I mean, not that it looked like he cared for him too much, but there's probably good reason to believe that there's a Emily body, or at least a little bit of her mind map somewhere that she would want to get rid of if she truly doesn't embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, so Fiwet, I wanted to acknowledge you as well. He's in the same mind as me about it being a perpetual torturous thing, and then we also had a.
you just cited a supporter.
Yeah, what's funny is, like, as I was stating that, I was reading him saying it on the screen. So, good call, good call. Like we're brothers, man. All right, I'm kicking you off your show and putting him on. Just people that agree with me. um, oh man,
What story does that tell? It's like, oh, we really got that son of a bitch.
What was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? So the Man in Black. So there is definitely something that he's done that we haven't seen. 100%. 100%. He has had to have done something so atrocious that, I mean, I don't know, that it would turn your family against you.
How would you feel if he was mapping your mind without your permission? It's almost just like, that's pretty atrocious. I think
sure.
there's
but the organic me would still not experience that atrocity. The
now
me would never.
This is an important point, people. To see what Hex is saying here. That's why you can't truly say they can map consciousness, because Hex is just showing his cards here, and he doesn't believe that really would be him. So, and that's not a wrong way, but you cannot prove it one way or another. It's just a viewpoint on life.
Yes. So the organic me wouldn't care because I would still have an expiration date. I would still go down. It still wouldn't be such an atrocious. I mean, what William is promising other people to the outside is that, hey, you can live forever, or in addition of you, could live forever. So it wouldn't be such a crazy thing that I would kill myself over. And I don't want to get into the idea of thinking that we can ever guess what someone brings themselves to do that because of. But I don't know. Like in this episode, they talk about the Man in Black's sickness. There's something there, there has to be something more than just what we've seen so far.
I think it's far more intriguing to believe that Emily has an agenda that she is just. I think it doesn't make sense that this is like her, like, seeking out revenge on him. That might be like something she gets on the side to a point, but I think it makes more sense to think that she would be in cahoots with like Charlotte Hale, and that she might extract some revenge. But it's just a daughter. Even you might hate somebody in your family, but if Ghost Nation's about to hack them up, you might be like, oh, you might try to get him out of it. I just don't see, unless, hey, we might do a cold open with him like chained up to some torture device, and she's just going to town. Dude,
it's just him. It's him in an iron bull, and they're just lighting the flame under it, dude. Just like crazy,
Yeah, like Cesare Borgia stuff, yeah. And then Lisa Joy and Nolan come on screen and say that episode was what the show's all about. If somebody does something that angers you, you find them and you subject them to the worst torture possible. Thank you, guys. Westworld.
And Finn. So back to the story. We come to when the wife is taken away, and kind of this, this idea of someone that you love being, a cornerstone in a sense. It's never discussed what his cornerstone is. And I mean,
it's interesting. What his cornerstone, I think, becomes is he says that his cornerstone becomes everybody else's cornerstone. He says that when he's observing his loved one in cold storage, he says that there are all people that are mourning you and they don't know it. And he's talking about the hosts that are in the park that haven't been, flying under Stubbs's radar for 10 years, that he's saying they're mourning them, but they don't know it because they've been rolled back. So I think his cornerstone, becomes the need, the yearning to, bring back the memories of other people's cornerstones and bring that to light, because he realizes what they did to what they did to the person he loves. That's his motive is to enlighten, and he goes about it in a very graceful way. Ford is, like I said, look at him. He Bran Starked right into him. He's like, I'm just taking over. He's doing a nice little drawing in the dirt. Like he's giving it time and all that. The only other thing I want to say about that picture really quick is, did you notice they went from white golf cart color to like the darker ones? So with the Delos staff, so we can see a difference in the technology, I guess, with the buggies.
Gotcha. Yeah, more of like the IT engineers or surgeons picking up the old bodies to repair them, as opposed to like QA. Yeah.
What do you think about the cornerstone thing? Am I onto something with that? Or, I mean, because he says there's people mourning you and they don't even know it.
I mean, I think with the cornerstone, we can't. I don't know. I mean, if I'm programming a host to exist and to be a Ghost Nation host or a Native American host, I I don't see that being the cornerstone. I don't see the exploration of other people's enlightenment being the cornerstone. Now, Ford does bring up the fact that, he was meant to understand
Oh
the world
wait.
around
Oh,
him.
I'm sorry. You were on it. I think that that's explained in the first. You're talking about what's the cornerstone they gave him, not what he came to on its own. Like what was his existing cornerstone. I think that when he got brought in and with all the mayhem from Arnold, that they voiced that. They say he says that he doesn't want to go back and map all of his whatever. He says something like something I think it has to do with like his hereditary, whatever, like his total culture. And she says just adjust his, like, it's just behavioral stuff, like his aggression and something else. So they don't, you know what I mean? Like they've glossed over him. So yeah, we got to look. Teddy didn't have a cornerstone. We see Ford give Teddy his cornerstone last season, and that's technically only like 3 weeks ago in this timeline.
No, he didn't have a backstory. He had a cornerstone. I mean, that's the whole point. All hosts need this cornerstone. It's what grounds them so that they. Well, I mean, it's not said, but probably so they don't go crazy. I'm sorry. It's the cornerstone in which they build the entire personality around. So
I think that he was just kind of a blank slate, and obviously I think it would just be the love for the love interest that he was with at the time,
Yeah, I mean this whole thing. So my point of bringing that up is that if you take away the cornerstone of this person, you have then affected that storyline, and you would put that other host and anyone connected to that host in shambles. So for the wife to be the cornerstone, then they would have taken him up. I think really my biggest quarrel with this entire thing is that it doesn't make sense, right?
Well,
I love the episode, but it doesn't make sense that they would be able to go where they went, to be able to experience the cognitive dissonance that they did, and to affect other hosts, to affect other storylines, and it not be picked up by Delos for so long.
Yeah, and that is just something that we're gonna have to get over. It's just, I don't think it's great. It's heavy-handed, but I think the story still works. And they say he's a scavenger or whatever. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, because I've mapped out the whole way that if Teddy picks up the milk for Dolores, what happens with her day. I understand how all that works, how there's the variables, but certain hosts have more effect on the other hosts than others. You know what I mean? So his storyline doesn't have. He's not like the Stray, who he was the only person that could handle the axe. So we did see, like what you're saying, the result of taking out one of the variables and then having having them have nothing to default to, so they get stuck in their their loops. So I get what you're saying, but I think that it's just, think about how many hosts are in there, brother. Like they can't, you know what I mean? Some are just more free roaming, and that's what his character was. And it makes sense from a storytelling point of view too, because look, you got people like Lee Sizemore writing for the Eastern, the Western, and then Native American culture. You know what I mean? Like it's probably going to be, you got Lee writing it. So, I mean, how in depth is it going to be? It would make sense that he would be, he doesn't have any experience in that area, so he doesn't focus so much on that. He was a scavenger. He was nomadic. He didn't, that's what helped him, is he wasn't tied down. In my opinion.
I guess it really is hearsay, because in my opinion, it's kind of like it should be. I mean, it's a futuristic freaking amusement park. There's no way. I mean, they've already exhibited that they've been able to detect when Maeve has a cognitive dissonance, or when someone strays off, or I mean, a million other things. So for it,
if you want me to, I agree with you. It's not great storytelling, but I just don't want to shit on the show. I bring up a lot when I have issues, and I just am letting them slide on this. I'm just saying it's just straight up. This is where they needed to go. This is where it was heading, and they maybe could have handled it a little bit more smoothly. But we have to suspend the belief. I mean, we have to ignore that Stubbs was so on the ball. And this goes for a lot of the storylines, that why is he so on the ball one moment and then not in season one? There's a lot of issues with that. You know how I feel about QA. You've talked to me off stream. I have a lot of issues with it, but I think the show still holds up. I agree with you, though. I think you're going to come up with a beautiful theory that's going to make the writers of the show say, oh shit, did you see that storyline that we kind of didn't handle too well? HaxDogma from the Huffington Post made it a lot. We should have waited for him. Yeah, I mean, go ahead, make it. I mean, mental gymnastics to do it, but I just, you know what I mean? It is what it is. You got to enjoy it or not,
I mean, I don't think it's that black and white. I think we can still criticize them. Um, but
Ford was watching him, so I guess we could, because he does say, "You've been watching me, and I've been watching you." So I guess we could, that does imply that Ford could have took measures to somehow make.
to mask.
Yes,
Yes, yes, I do agree.
I think, yeah, I think that I got us some sort of a middle ground there. Yeah,
Probably.
because that's some dialogue to make it more acceptable. He should
Yeah.
have said though, "That's why I've been hiding you from Stubbs." Tell Hacks.
Yeah, tell Hacks this isn't a plot hole.
He
um,
is an exposition machine. Oh, go ahead, sorry, but I
so
agree with you.
so the idea of Maeve in this entire thing, Maeve is kind of just another part of the story, kind of flashing in and out as the other story is being told. I liked how they did this. It kind of throws me off that they're dissecting her in the way that they are. Because if you look on the screen now, I mean, they have like her neck opened up and cables coming out of everywhere but her arm. At least I believe. In this shot, it does kind of look like there's one to her arm, but in the other, it doesn't.
And this is the body that she needs. Remember that.
Yeah, sure. So, but the thing is, why? Why in the world do they have her neck opened up? Because as far as we know, it's just the hard line into
Yeah,
the arm. So
I agree. The cortex, yeah, like why are they like? Is he like? I don't know. You're the tech guy. Is there some like, like back line that he's accessing that he's tapping into in her neck? I think it's just meant to look very brutal. I agree. Um, but I brought up what type of code they say that she's passing. Like and you said it just meant that there was that something was up that they realized when they saw her communicating with people. What did they call it again?
it was an anomaly.
Yeah,
It was just a code that they realized was having an issue.
yeah. Somebody's saying nerves. I don't know. Yeah, maybe is he like manipulating her to like maybe put her in the pain to see what that does to the code? Maybe that's it. He's like seeing how it's changing. I don't. Again, now I'm playing mental gymnastics.
Yeah, I
To
kind
make
of I kind of expected them to just remove her cortex and analyze it. I mean, like it was either that or analyze from the hard line into the arm. I mean, it could just be that's the route. Like there is a route in which you can access the data, and Bernard just chooses to do it through the arm because it's maybe less impactful, and they choose to do it through the neck because they're evil, and from a storytelling, that's what they're trying to show us. But
Yeah, because taking the cortex out and then just leaving her there doesn't make for the drama. Lee can't run into the room when he's just sitting there, like with the USB drive plugged in, and have his emotional moment. You know what I mean? She has to be up in bloody tatters.
yeah, and I brought this up in the pre-show as well. Is the idea of this being a powerful thing, a power that they could use that could be used against Dolores, and that's really interesting. And I think that we'll see that used against Dolores.
Yeah, because she's commanding them. You know what I mean? Imagine,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
they would have every reason to want to help. They failed, like I said, at every attempt. They always say that they're the best. We've got the one team that came in and failed. Now Delta's there. They're not doing so hot. So they got to do something. That they could weaponize Maeve,
You think so? You think it's just going to be like in the previews for other episodes? I think we see Maeve running through like a crowd of people, like I think crying or something like that. Do you think that maybe she's actually like being forced to do Delos's bidding and kind of like commanding all the hosts to stop what they're doing?
Well, I mean, think about how advantageous that would be for them to take control and manipulate this. They don't understand how it's happening yet, so he's got. I mean, you're the tech guy, so I guess the first thing you would do is observe it, right, and then analyze it. So I guess this is him observing and analyzing, and then he gives it to Charlotte Hale because he's like, "Hey, board member that has no tech background, take a look at this," and that's why things aren't getting done because you don't work there. Even if I was head of their security, things would be going far better. But whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that Maeve's the weapon that they got, but they can't weaponize her, if they don't understand how it works, And again, a lot of these people, I'm assuming they want us to just, have the assumption with it, which I think is they've established that, that the humans are fairly ignorant when it comes to the host. So, they always are underestimating them when they absolutely should not be. So it's always like, how are they doing this? And it's like, you guys, if I was there, I bet you guys should know from everything that's been going on, that these are pretty sophisticated things. We made them. We should not be underestimating. And again, I think the QA should have hosts working for them. Wouldn't that be smart?
Yeah.
Like the go-to for like these shows is to have like the army. I don't want that to be the big master plan, but hey, I don't mind you putting a few hosts in your QA. I mean, they're going to last a little bit longer, but maybe
that was my first thought. My first ever theory about Delis's master plan was that they were militarizing and just an army of hosts, an army of Teddy in the Delos, uniform is what I want to see. I think that would be just the craziest thing, is just an army of fucking super commando Teddies walking down, just blazing. But
I thought it was always a lot of Maeves, and they were just having the best run brothels in the world.
Yeah.
That was what the outside world was. Like the best prostitution ring in the world is Delos's master plan. They're like, we made the best. We could have made an army. We could have made presidents. We could have made kings. We could have made gods. We made whores. And you can come down tonight for half off and $2 shots. Theory.
Yeah, there we go.
That. Huffington Post, call me.
So the scene happens. We get, we have spoken about remorseful.
I'm sorry. AU is burning up the, the connection. I said, I think that we are going to have some people come to that conclusion with that line about the heart, that Maeve has the consciousness of his love interests because of that last one. I think that they put that in there because Maeve can read the host. Remember, she did this this is just my take, but she did this with Lawrence. She went through his memories really quick. So she's communicating with him. So she's able to access that. So, she said something that she knew was sentimental to him and meant something because he was taking care of the dog. That's my take on it, but it's still completely possible. But then the hosts have to be able to have interchangeable bodies.
So actually,
I don't like it.
So, something along with that, and that someone just put, is that Maeve has access to the entire network and all hosts, but she has access to the back door of a mesh network that has been described as proximity based, right? You're allowed, from what we know, is that you're able to access other hosts in that proximity. So either the proximity is so big that there's really no point in bringing it up, or there just happened to be a chain of hosts physically placed through the park from Maeve to, her daughter, in which they could speak in that final scene. I feel like something's there because the system's down, right? She's not using the system or, some undefined variable. It has to be the mesh network, and the mesh network is defined as proximity based. So how is she talking to her daughter, or, you know what I mean?
Well, to him, I don't take it as she's talking to the daughter, but it's the same difference. She's talking to him. I think that, I don't know, I'm not the tech guy, but I think it's just been implied that she has a deeper understanding of it. And it's another plot progression and in progression in our narrative that the hosts are, embracing their own culture. And this is built into them, like this again, if you're going to make killer robots, don't do it with a hive mind and don't give them feelings and dreams. Just don't do it. Like, they should know. Do they have movies in this universe? Have they seen shit? This is all just like, make sure they can feel things and make sure that there's a possibility for them all to communicate. They're like, possibility control. Like, yeah, why not? I don't see what could go.
Yeah, Fiwet does bring up the point. The same way that they located Abernathy, jumped through all the hosts from host to host. And yeah, I agree. And I guess they do showcase the broad range of the mesh network in that first scene, but it is just...
Shogun World too was like a showcasing of her achieving this higher. I can't explain how it happens, and I'm gonna love to see how you're gonna explain how it happens, because you're probably gonna make it good. But do you agree with me? That whole episode was her like honing her inner Neo, but it was her accessing, having higher, abilities to access, her people, her species.
Yeah, I mean, Tony brings up a good point in the chat about admin privileges and the back door being two different things. So yeah, the fact that they define what she has as admin privileges, I think in season 1 they discuss her being given admin rights. Do you remember that with Sylvester and Felix?
Well, she did take the host pad from him, which they were like, well, we need to have control of this situation, make sure to have the behavioral pad out. Yeah, and so I would assume that she would. I'm sure that we can go and find a screenshot where, yes, hopefully for continuity reasons, they did do that. But again, yeah, don't also, if you're gonna make killer robots, don't give them admin access either. That's probably a bad idea. But yeah, I think hopefully that's in there. Again, I think you're gonna make, hopefully there's some stills that give that credence. But yeah, I just think we have to assume that her time with Felix and Sylvester was just really paying off. I mean, she got to do whatever she wanted to herself. Why wouldn't she do admin?
Yeah. So a couple people are stating that she was definitely given admin rights by Felix. Okay, so cool. So that in and of itself is kind of defined as, I mean, even that's interesting because now that the system's down, the thing that would need admin rights to exist, what's the point of bringing that up again? What is her having a privilege over another user account really do? Because in the system's dead, there are no user accounts. I think more realistically, the importance of it is that there is the mesh network, and in season 1, it's talked about these backdoors and these nonverbal commands that Ford and Arnold have developed through the years and are still left in the code from all those years ago. So I think that's more realistically what we're going through. It's it's using the mesh network, using the commands in the backdoor. I mean, the words are all exchangeable or interchangeable, but
yeah, I mean, it just makes sense that she's utilizing the abilities that they put in, these measures that they put into place for their sake, humans, against them. She's turning the tables. She's flipping these safeguards, I guess that would be, in some circumstances, to not really too advantageous for them.
Yeah. But I mean, we see, and a couple of people bring this up now, that she has admin rights and no one else can access the system. Well, I mean, we see Bernard's, Hulk smash the system and have that scene where they specifically state, now this means, nothing is hindering them. So, I mean, so what system? Is this just some other fictional system that we've yet to be introduced to?
I don't know what system it is, but it makes sense to me, because what do we have? I'm doing this in layman's term. We have a key, we have a hard drive, and we have an accessible, and maybe you'll pick this apart, network or information system of some sort. So we have one main character with the key, one main character with the drive, and one main character with the admin access to make it work, bringing all of our main characters together, completing the narrative for to achieve their goal, get the information. I mean, isn't that a missing link? They would need her because of the access.
No, I mean, it's not. I mean, they're stating that she's an admin to a system that we know is destroyed. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have better rights than every single person in that system if the system is destroyed. I mean, I think it means something. I don't know exactly what.
If she can access all the other host memories, why can't she hack in the Abernathy's head when he had the memories, or whoever has them now? It's just interchangeable. I don't see why she wouldn't be able to get all the information. I think she's a missing piece of that objective. Yeah,
I mean, I think she's going to be served as the puppet of, of them using this mesh network and the back door to kind of issue commands and do what they want to their will.
Maybe deceive them as well. Yeah, like lure them into a valley.
Yeah, very, very, yeah. But I think that, the point of them including, maybe it means nothing. Maybe they just said it because it's a word that people recognize that means something better than what they have. So, them acknowledging an admin account on a system that they've destroyed, maybe it doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's being objectified. Now she's not, because she has the power. She's empowered by this admin privilege. I don't know what that totally entails, but I also know that there's another host somewhere with a whole bunch of information they need. And I think admin tells me, just with my simple knowledge, that maybe she can get it. And I think that there's a writer's room full of people that would probably agree. I mean, somebody did write last episode, if this doesn't work out, I'm going back to dental school for Elsie. And I was like, no, too much. Dude, I didn't like that one.
I'm dental school cosplay Elsie. I'm sorry. I'm dental school Elsie cosplaying next year. So don't.
It's a spinoff. It'll be like private practice, but it'll be Elsie in dental school. They just really go with that.
My face reveal is just going to be legitimately that Elsie face reveal, dental school.
She'd be good. Stubbs needs a new job too. Maybe he's gonna go work in a union somewhere. Let's see.
So as
Couldn't they
we,
just fuck with the code? Sorry.
no, you're good. You're good.
Somebody's asking if they couldn't. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, what I'm taking it from, and Hex works in tech, so he is, he's really trying to figure out like how they'd be able to do this. I'm just taking it as that she has privileges they don't, and they cannot get into it, guys. That's what they're trying to do. Why wouldn't they? I think they want to, but they can't. He gave it to Charlotte Hale, who again is a board member. I don't know why you need her insight, but yeah, she didn't know what to do with it. He's like, well, I tried everybody in this room. So
She's just walking around. Is anyone an admin? Hey, do you have admin access to the system? The system's destroyed. Oh shit, man. Okay.
All right. I tried. Yeah.
No one's an admin. Yeah. So
somebody will parachute in tomorrow and take over.
Just fucking. It's just a giant. ODST comes flying from a satellite, and it's just an admin man. Admin man.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So getting back to this story. So the scene where he goes and he finds his love interest and I mean, I was expecting Ford to reveal himself then. Like I was so ready to see like Ford just walk out of nowhere in the cold storage and kind of acknowledge him in that point. But what do you think of that scene? Is there any big takeaways or?
Yeah, I think I've got somebody asking Tony, one of my lovely patrons, and I have made Tony at the Westworld Amino a moderator, so I've given her access. I hope she doesn't, become a superior species and use that against me.
Of a system that's not destroyed.
Yeah, I'll destroy it. What do we think about the Awakening song, Heart Shaped Box? I think that goes along with what I'm saying. Heart Shaped Box to me I thought it was beautiful. Number one, because I'm a sucker for music. I've been watching A Star Is Born. I'm a straight guy, and I've been watching that trailer over and over. I think it's beautiful. I think I really like when they inject the music in. And Heart Shaped Box to me means what these hosts. That's just a shell, a heart shaped box. They're not tied to their biological parts like we are, because they were designed in our image, not their image. But yeah, I thought it was beautiful. I don't think anybody wouldn't like that scene, but yeah, I think that it was a really clever way to use it. What do you mean about Ford revealing? I think it's fair to say that Ford was definitely watching him during that moment. Hex, we'd have to believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Pivotal.
I think so.
Why was there nobody around?
Dude, exactly. Why was there no one around? Why was he able to do that? Why in the world was he able to do that and no one detected it? And if you're okay, I know I think I break my own immersion in this show sometimes, because if you launch an update on anything, that device is not going to be able to walk around or function while updating, let alone an update that takes 4 hours. You're telling me that just the first couple minutes of that update were just like getting the system ready, and he's walking around and no alarms are going off because it's not, hey, your the machine that you're updating is now walking around?
Well, number one, I'm assuming it was a Sunday in a holiday weekend at that. And that guy did say, I'm not waiting here 4 hours, and we're the only 2 people here. See, now this is when I want to play script doctor. It's like, oh, but I bet if I'm explaining this premise to somebody, I'm like, but then he gets around and walks around like, oh, is the facility like really dark and like it's like like really mysterious? I'm like, nope, everything's clear glass.
Everything's well lit.
They're like, why would you do that? Because I need to have people believe that this could happen, that this is plausible. And they're like, so probably make it so it's like dark corners, and it's like, oh, it's like a whole bunch of people moving around, so he's mixing in and they're bringing in more ghosts. I'm like, nope, nobody's there, and it's all clear. So somebody should definitely be seeing him, but that's how I want to do it. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. That floor is completely empty, and he knew right where to go. But Maeve also walked around with, Ford planned it.
Yeah, realistically, every single thing can be written off as Ford planned it.
That's a terrible way to live, but
it is. It's exactly why I knew that Ford was going to die season 1, because it can't happen. At some point, the audience will just get tired of it, because it subtracts from the drama. It subtracts from what the writers need to do to establish a storyline. And again, there's no drama in that if everything could just be manipulated by one person. So
absolutely, there's no stakes, and that's what by destroying the cradle, now we have stakes for the host, because there's not a bunch of backups for them. They didn't want that anyways, but you can't now. If they die, they actually they don't have the whole whatever backup system. So we need stakes. You're right. You can't just have just people just beat Teddy every single day, getting killed. Now it matters if he dies. We saw he's in the water. He's dead, confirmed.
Very true. Very, very true. So let me see here.
And I think it was really when you're looking at that, I mean, that was what was great about this episode, and what makes me not harp on the clear, like, glass, and how that shouldn't be happening, how they shouldn't be like, we're leaving and go about whatever, is that they showed us Ford for a moment. Not, he was sitting there like looking at the tattoos, whatever you want to call the engraving, and he was watching him, but he also realized, hey, so this is working out, but it's not working out how I thought. I'm observing, I'm trying to learn. And he realized that this wasn't something that, because, okay, it's a show about empowerment. If they're only empowered because Ford takes the wheel every single time that there's conflict, that's not really a show about empowerment. That's a show about an old white guy controlling everything. That is the opposite about what Westworld is trying to do. I can't believe how many people want, I've said this before, and I don't mean to be a jerk. I can't believe, especially some female fans that I talked to, that they want Ford to be in control of anything. I'm like, I've never seen so many people just want an old white male running everything for them. Like, this is the culture that we're in. We have things like mansplaining, and everybody's like, no, it's so much better if Ford's doing it. I'm like, I guess if that's what you want. I mean, free will, just use it to get rid of it. You're like, nope, old white guy doing it. But he is a good actor. I mean, I don't know. I think if you would have put a different actor in there, maybe they could have achieved what they wanted more. Just somebody really like Tom Green, somebody really undesirable in Anthony Hopkins' role. Then nobody'd be like Tom Green's controlling everybody, or Ben Affleck. I don't know, Ben Affleck, maybe Casey Affleck. That might not work. Yeah, but hey, if you guys want Ford to be running everything, he might be. It's an easy out for a writer's room. If I wanted to go home early and I was on that writing team, I'd be like, so you guys just want to say like Ford did it right early day. So
True. So I do like the term host splaining. Very, very funny. So coming back to Lee Sizemore. So we discussed this already, but God damn it, dude. What did he think was going to happen to Maeve?
He thought Ford was going to take care of it. He's like, where's Ford?
He's just like singing Jesus Take the Wheel, but every Jesus is actually Ford, and he's just like humming it to himself like, this is a good idea.
Ford take the wheel. Yeah, I get oh god, I'll edit that out. But yeah, I mean, but I think I will argue. I'll say this is good writing because this is realistic. How many times do I say things on a stream that I'm like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that? And all he has to do is sit around looking like Huckleberry Finn, thinking about what just happened, because the current QA that's in charge is supposedly taking care of things, and then he goes back in and he's like, please stop. And they're like, no. Can you look at the screen? Do you know what this is? All right, bye. No, I mean, I think it's conflict. It's the struggle within. He's on his journey. When she left him, it was easy for her. They had a genuine moment, and then he went and betrayed her right away. Some would argue that doesn't make sense. I said that makes perfect sense because people, we want to survive. I will say on the stream that I'm always a hero and I'm never a coward. But in real life, there's a lot more cowards than there are heroes. So as soon as Maeve walked away, he phoned for help. And yeah, Felix went along, and showed his allegiance, but even Sylvester, stood back. So I think it's explainable.
Yeah, so I agree. So do you think that let me see, Felix and Sylvester are with him?
I don't know. Because, okay, Maeve gets separated from, we have unaccounted for Hector, Armistice, and Felix.
And Shogun,
Sylvester,
Armistice.
Yeah, sorry. Yep. Shogun. I just didn't want to say that. Yeah, no, you're right. No, we know her name, people. I'll edit it in. Yeah. So where are they? Like, because Maeve traveled a vast, she got to her daughter, but evidently there was more distance between them, so they are unaccounted for. So we have to think that maybe that's her hope, because Dolores isn't too concerned with her. They had their little moment, but Dolores meant to leave. I wonder if Dolores was privy to knowing that she could, be an asset. She maybe would have stuck around. But yeah, I guess Hector could come to the rescue.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I think that maybe they're out there trying to find where Maeve went. But I mean, there had to have been an interaction when the Delos team showed up, and and found Lee with these hosts. And I don't think it was as simple as we're gonna go. I think it involved a lot of gunfire, and we might have seen the end of some of those characters.
Well, but off screen.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen off screen. I'm saying that it has probably happened because of everything that would. I mean, how did? I also don't agree at how quickly they got to Lee. I mean, they got to Lee super fucking quick.
Well, let's talk about how they left. If the Man in Black runs Delos like everybody says, which he doesn't, and I know Wikipedia can be changed, but they keep it pretty. They got it in there that he's just a stockholder of Westworld pretty consistently. And they left their Jeff Bezos or their Elon Musk just laying bleeding out. That's the guy that owns Delos. They just left him there. They went and saved Maeve. And I think that's the explanation, is they couldn't have Hector and them in that scene, because then Maeve getting captured doesn't make sense unless you do kill them.
Well, so I mean, all I'm saying is that they probably fought, because I mean, the last time we see them, Felix goes off to the other hosts, and I mean, there's not a great distance. There's maybe a football field in between where they're sitting on the hillside and the in the entire interactions with them shooting the Ghost Nation hosts happen. So if Felix runs over there and then maybe magically the people quickly drive up and Sylvester and Felix, I'm sorry, Sylvester and Lee Sizemore get in the car and then vanish off into the distance before any of the hosts or Felix realize what happened, I just don't see that happening.
Well, also, we do need to look at it from a storytelling point of view that Lee wrote Hector like in his image. Like they mentioned that Maeve's like, oh, he's the man that you want to be. That's sad. So this is like the conflict of him trying to do what Hector is. So I just really think it's an issue. I think everything you said is right, but unfortunately, they just couldn't have them in that scene. So we're led to believe that they're in combat. Yes, I believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So I think Maeve, Lee's remorseful. They come up with a plan to hide the symbol inside their own or inside people's scalps. I think that's pretty interesting. Why would they think that they needed to hide that symbol?
Well, I think that because they have every reason to believe that that the humans don't want them to evolve. So if this is helping them, they know they're being stripped. He's explaining that they're being stripped of their memories. So this is the reminder for it. So if they like Ford figures it out, so they don't think, oh, hopefully that old white guy figures it out because we know he'll do the right thing. They think if the evil corporation gets a hold of this, they'll probably take it away from us, just like they take away our loved ones. So they have to hide it. It's something just for them. I don't know how they view. It doesn't make sense that they put it inside their head, because I mean, do they take that off and look at it? I think it's just more symbolic, and maybe he should have said to him, "Hey, I get what you're going for, but you don't need to be that brutal."
and that's the other thing. I mean, do they just? I mean, after you do that, you
can't view it.
Yeah, does it make sense?
Mm-mm. But it's very beautiful, and it's a cool story to tell. It's just not a cool story to think about for too long. You get what I'm saying? What more? How much more of a precious secret? And now that's part of them. So he literally makes it part of him. But he's like, then they didn't show the scene where he's like, man, what did that symbol look like? He's, oh shit, I put it in my head. I gotta cut that off again.
He's just like, oh shit, I should have maybe put it on a piece of paper or maybe just put it on a stone.
Yeah,
like they did. I have to cut off your head or your scalp and figure it out again.
Like look at this, Hax. What if you gave me something? You said, Justin, you're a good friend of mine, because that's what you say all the time. You say, you're my best friend, Justin. I want you to have this like let's just say it's like some coin or something, like whatever, some totem of some sort. And I then take a knife out and I like cut my arm open and patch it in there. You'd be like, Jesus Christ, put it in your pocket, maybe put it, yes, in a case, but you don't need to go that far. This guy was just a wacko. Again, like if for every beautiful theory that us content creators can come up with, like that explains away Game of Thrones stuff and this stuff, it is a TV show, and we do, and this show does, unfortunately, have a lot of times that we have to look the other way, but it's very ambitious. It's tackling huge subjects. So it's just like, yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
I don't think anything's going to come with it.
I think it's interesting. Like maybe So my idea was that maybe they do it in case, other people scalp them, or something happens that now other hosts can remember that event, or it triggers something. But
That was my theory, remember? Like, I thought that it would maybe for the drone host at the beginning of the season, that when they open that up, it would trigger them, just like, the violent delights. See it more as just like a symbolic scene, though. I mean, there's still openings for it. It's just I don't know.
yeah,
Because they're all doing it.
yeah, because I mean, if that is the case, if that is their plan, then we have to assume that, I mean, that they can put their top of their head back on after they've done that thing, which I don't think you can. I think that's, you pretty much die if that happens, right?
I don't know. I mean, we have different beliefs on how important those bodies that they're constantly dismembering are. So I don't think it's a great way to store things. But again, I value our friendship, so feel free to send me something, an Amazon gift card. I'll put it inside my stomach, and then I'll be like, and I'll go to get my purchase, and I'll be like, oh shit, get the knife out.
Yeah. So the thing is that we would have to assume that when a new body was printed for them, or a full rebuild called, that they would have that symbol still on the top of their head. And I just don't think that it works like that.
Mm-mm.
So I'm not really sure. I think that Arnold still does come into play with something in the symbol and it being so relevant, and them putting it on the inside of the scalp. But yeah, I'm just not sure.
I think we should move on, because the more you think about it, it doesn't get better. Is all I'm saying.
True. Let me see. So we learned that it was, the interaction of the main character and the daughter was really interesting. I mean, like, he's been around and kind of manipulating and keeping her safe, and kind of encouraging this journey on the maze. I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed that.
Absolutely. And I thought it was cool too. And because, I mean, again, the point of the show is not white males run everything. It's about like breaking down barriers. So, he understood, because we looked at them as like, we have seen this scene multiple times at this point, of that, that day that changed Maeve, where we're always assuming, and the daughter assumed up until this point that we see in this episode, like you just said, a beautiful moment, that he goes, people have, I forget, somebody in the chat will give it, but it's hard to, intentions are hard to, like, I don't know. Sometimes intentions aren't clear or something like that, like forgiving, because they thought that he was the threat, but he was really there to help them. And that, that was about him and the species taking care of its own species, and having, because he could have just like went and tried to, get back his, and that's his only goal. But he kind of like realized that can't happen. So he made a point to like become the teacher, to teach the people. He knows he can't bring those memories back. And I think that's the interesting contrast. We see James Delos, who he's fine with, I guess, having that situation where he's going to live forever, but nobody else in his life, because every single time they're checking for fidelity, as time goes on, everybody in his life is dead. When the hosts, they are all willing, like Maeve is willing multiple times to go to the other side. They're all willing to go and venture forth, and to because all they care about is their loved ones, because they've had those memories stripped away. When it's just selfish reasons for humanity is just looking to try to, I guess, cheat death or whatever. So I thought that was, I think that we will see theories, and let me know in the chat, let me know what you think, Hax, about that daughter being his love interest as well. Because if there's something about Westworld, everybody can be somebody else, and you're going to get 100K views because somebody is somebody else, and this can spell this, and they need to stop and think, does that make this better? Or is that just going to be something that's clever?
We're going to go ahead and say that she's not the love interest, because
it's weird.
It's fucking weird as shit, dude.
But I can't wait for the first guy to do it, and I'm calling him out as a pervert right away.
It's you. You brought that up.
I'm not making it. I'm not making the theory, though. Somebody will make a theory, and it'll get a bunch of thumbs up.
What are you talking about? No one's made that. No one's made that theory. I've never heard that.
Well, there's already. I'm just saying that. Because of the community, his interest in her, because people are thinking already that Maeve is his love interest. So it's on the board. As soon as you bring up somebody could be somebody else, then it could be anybody else. So, I mean, I think she's Ford. So, because I'm all about kid empowerment.
I agree. I think that I mean, maybe anything's possible. Sci-fi, right? But Ew, and no.
Yeah, I'm not for it. I'm not advocating
No,
for it.
no, no, yeah, I feel you. I feel you. So the scene with them discussing, Ford discussing waiting a little longer for the Deathbringer. This is something that we discussed in the beginning, and we can now discuss now. Is Dolores the Deathbringer?
I think that it's just more, when the Grim Reaper comes. I think it's what in his case, yes, she is. You know what I mean? But I think it's more of just like him saying, when the Grim Reaper brings me. But he'd be like, I don't know what that is. He's like, check your skull. It's written in there.
Dude,
I think it's you get what I'm saying though. It's like when when I die, I think that he was just saying when death comes for me, you'll know.
See, but here's the thing. He has witnessed the aftermath of two of Dolores killing the creators, that she being the Deathbringer.
Yep.
And then what's interesting is that the I'm sorry, when he first comes back into the town and discovers Arnold laying on the ground, guess whose grave we see briefly on the screen?
Dolores. Yep.
Yeah, it's Dolores.
Well, no, there's something to that. Yeah, that is somebody could be. Yeah, no, I mean that's a metaphor that I think does make sense. I think it could be a more general term. I think it works, but I think that there's something to that I think isn't stupid. Like I think that because yes, like big deaths have been brought by her. She has been the chosen executor, and it wasn't even her free will the first few times. And I argue that that was really heavy handed with the whole suicide thing. He's like, you like this gun, don't you? She's like, I guess. Cool. See me in a minute. Remember what I did to you. See ya.
I didn't make her do it. I just knew what she would do. Yeah, but you kind of primed her.
Yeah, Bernard even mentioned that. Yeah, didn't Bernard say something about that? He's like, dude, you were totally. That's not. He's like, no. I just showed her a painting, coaxed her for 10 hours, gave her the gun, said you like that gun, and then made a speech with a an activating term in it.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that they're trying to show, at least in my opinion, they're trying to show Dolores or Wyatt as the Deathbringer. And I think this might be a red herring. I think that this might be, them trying to create something for us to follow. Because what does that really serve for the plot? I mean, if Dolores is this big bad, then why create her?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why. I mean, I think that it makes sense, and that I think that it doesn't have to be like a big diabolical thing. I think that it would make sense that he would get the reference because of what you said. You've cited evidence. He's seen many slain by her, so that would make sense. Like if you knew somebody that killed a bunch of people, you might call him Slaughter or Death Machine. You know what I mean? Without it being like some big twist or something. I think it still makes sense. There's no advantage to going like any like crazy route where it's like she's the death, and that's her whole arc is. But I mean, hey, whatever people fancy. But yeah, I think that you're onto something. There's definitely the connection there, and a lot of people are coming to that conclusion.
Yeah,
foreshadowing's there.
So let me see here. Yeah, all in all, I love the scene. This is my favorite scene of the episode. I know that people thought everything else was really pretty, but I just, the power that Ford just has always. He just always displays this aura of godliness. I mean, in godliness in more of a controlling and maybe villainous sense even. It was really well done. But
yeah, how long do you think he waited there? Because when Ford freezes hostess, he does it with style. Like you know what I mean? Like he waited there for 2 weeks. He's like, come on. There it is. That's the Chopin. That's my moment. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
You're right.
He
doesn't do things small, brother.
He had to have been there long enough to scalp every single one of the hosts there. So, yeah, pretty decent amount of time.
It's not really evil when they're hiding stuff out there. That's all I'm saying.
So let me see here. So of course they, him finding Ford dead. The line about before the Deathbringer ends all of us. I mean, it's really being set up that Dolores is kind of going to be a threat to them, but I still don't understand why.
I don't think so. I think that him going through with the suicide to him, first off, proves his motive to, the host, that he is sincere. It's like, because that's why he tells him to wait and watch a little bit longer, because you need to do this without my help. Wait for me to come to your side, because that's why he says I can survive here, because I'm not like James Salos. I'm not trying to, like live as a human in the body. I will deteriorate out there. So he's really putting his cards on the table and going. He's like, wait and let me prove to you that I'm really in it for you guys. Because we have to think, he has to look at Ford, and he's not going to, maybe he does think, hey, old white guy, I'm a Native American, this is going to work out. Maybe he jumped to that conclusion. But I'm assuming that Ford would have to prove himself, because what has his interaction been with humans so far? Why would he have any reason to trust Ford? I think that Ford saying that it's just a metaphor for his death. Dolores isn't, it doesn't mean, it would make sense. It works with Dolores, but it is what it is. He's like, it's pretty much wait for me to show you how serious I am about this. You'll find me dead on the stage.
He's like, I'm so serious. I'm gonna kill myself. All right.
Well, that's a pretty serious way to show it. But like what? Because he made her do it. So what would be the point of it? It doesn't do anything. It would be a really weird way to take the story. Because then he just made a monster, and then he was kind of trying to help, but he was mostly just fucking around. I don't know what that does. You know what I mean? It's just, he was like, no, I'm gonna wait for the Grim Reaper to bring me. Wait for me to come to you on your terms.
See, I still do think that they're setting up for Dolores to be this Deathbringer, right? I think like a lot of lines kind of push us to that. But what subtracts from that for me is that if Ford's plan was to get Dolores out and to existence or something like that, or to the real world, what's the point of having two inter-host factions combat each other? What's the point of that?
Well, I think that this is what because along with free will becomes the burden of free will. Like I before the stream was going on, I'll do a quick metaphor. Like if the theology, like of the Garden of Eden, you have, God telling them not to pick the fruit. It's not an agreement, but he's given them free will, and he gives them that burden. That's what Ford is giving. He's given them the free will, and now they're going to act it out how they act it out. I think it's totally possible for Dolores to become the big bad, but it would make no sense for Anthony Hopkins, Dr. Ford, to make her that. She can definitely become that, and I think that's where they're going to take the story, because they're subverting tropes. So it's not going to be, oh, look at them, they're doing so great, because along with this gift of choice comes the consequences, and you can make some pretty shitty decisions. I mean, look at our history. It's not great. You don't want to, you know what I mean? Now they're making their decisions, and she is being very vengeful. And I think that even after this happens, that we could see them it's not like, hey, you give people free will, you're giving them free will. That doesn't, and again, he strips it from Bernard when he needs to take a ride. I don't like that, but it is what it is. It's giving people free will comes good and bad. It's not like just do good stuff with it only, promise. You know what I mean? Like what good would it do for him to make that's just a really, unless he's just a crazy man, which I think he is crazy to a point. But story wise, he would be like a schizophreniac, right? Like he wants the host to be free, but he also wants to make a monster.
That's the biggest thing that subtracts for it for me. So that's why I do think that maybe the Deathbringer idea is kind of just something that we harp on that maybe doesn't mean much. But of
cool
course,
nickname.
Very cool nickname. Of course, I'll say that. And maybe it is just that. Maybe it's not something that they're interpreting as like, we need to be afraid of this. She brought death. So, she brought death to Arnold. She brought death to Ford. In a sense, she is the death bringer, So maybe it's just, maybe it is just that.
Yeah, and he's not going to look at hosts that kill humans as necessarily like really bad people, because again, look, he still wanted to torture the Man in Black. That's for a story to be, first off, to have a lot of continuity errors and things you have to ignore, for me to still be this engaged and be live streaming about it, it has to have these bigger themes of it has to be smart, you don't make a story just about the host getting their free will and then being like goody two shoes. You make it so it's, like everybody likes Game of Thrones because they're like, oh, but he's a good guy, but he's also a bad guy. It's like, yeah, they wrote real people. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, that's why it's enticing, because you root for them, like watching the Blackwater. You don't even know who you're rooting for. That's great. That's great storytelling. Yeah. It's not like evil or bad. But yeah, I think it makes sense. You're right. They're foreshadowing for it. It's there, but it's like, I think it just works on that level, like he would know that. And he would look at Dolores like that's a formidable foe. You know what I mean? Because once they get their freedom, they're going to have to, probably start fighting them. They already are fighting with each other, So you're onto something. I just don't think it's going to be a big turn.
No, I'm in agreement. That's what I'm saying as well. So
I know. Sorry.
we come back to you're good. You're good. We come back to actually real quick. Costume Co. Yes, still going. I actually don't know where the time is when. I can't believe we've been talking about this for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But
I hope you guys are enjoying it. Yeah. I feel like
yeah,
I'm really
man,
passionate about this episode, and it's like, it is what it is. Sometimes, hopefully I have a beautiful theory to make these things better, but I'm not just going to make it better to make it better. I think that we have things that are not revealed. Like, we have 3 episodes left, and I think what is Grace's intention, and what because we definitely, the end scene isn't with, what we've seen with Bernard looking and all them at the valley. We're going to see something after that. So what is the Man in Black and Grace doing? I think is the big question. And I think that's what you have on the story.
Yeah.
And why is she so familiar? Sorry.
So I do want to see if we can skip over this, because we have discussed this already.
You freeze framed her in a bad time for her look, but it's still conviction.
Oh, I think that's a perfect frame, dude. I think that's amazing.
She's rolling that over. Yeah, that's great.
She is angry at her father. So I mean, in short, what we discussed before is essentially my personal thought is that she is going to possibly put him in the human cradle or the human incubation and put him through this perpetuous torment that James Delos was attributed to. And I came to that because of the idea that it doesn't really get much worse than what he's going through now. I mean, he's bleeding out, he's dying. So I mean, do you get worse by putting him in prison for the rest of his life? Well, I mean, not really. Do you get worse by killing him outright? Well, not really. I mean, the only thing that I think could be worse is realistically making him go through that perpetuous torment.
But what is she? I think you're onto something, but we have to wonder: is she just punishing for what we know, or we're most likely going to see something else as well? Like, yeah. So that's gonna. I think we need to delay your death sentence and torture sentence until all the evidence has been. We got 2 episodes left. Thank you guys. Has been displayed. I don't know. I don't think it's weird for me to think that she would really want him to go and I think it would be because, one man's jail is another man's heaven. You know what I mean? Like, some people aren't afraid of jail. Some people, the Man in Black doesn't want to be in the real world. So maybe just literally spending father-daughter time is he's just like, Jesus, kill me. But I'm serious. You know what I mean? It's subjective.
She's like, I'm gonna make him do the thing he hated most. Spend
go to
time
the mall
with
me. Go to a movie.
I think go
watch Blade Runner.
All right, so they leave. We of course have the scene with Hale. The big takeaway and the end of the episode is essentially fast forward is essentially Maeve is communicating with other hosts through the proximity network, through the mesh network. And yeah, I took this, and I believe when the chat first started, someone brought this up, is that I took this as Maeve was inside the daughter communicating with the other hosts. But Justin, your take was that Maeve was just communicating to that host, and then he was saying it aloud to the daughter. The reason I don't think that was it, because if the daughter isn't receiving that same message, what a crazy fucking scene for her to be witnessing, Like,
yeah.
She's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're going to keep my daughter safe.
She knows he's getting a DM. She's like, your mom's DMing me on Instagram right now, on Insta host.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was the reason I interpret it this way, and it could go either way, is because the scene, again, I'm gonna make the scene good for me, is I think it's moving because it's like a pact. It's like, stay alive for us, and I'll keep, you know what I mean, and I'm gonna take care. You only live as long as the person remembers you. I'm keeping your daughter alive because she's on her deathbed, a pretty terrible one, as you pointed out. That guy is not a doctor. I'm just gonna say it. You know what I mean? He's not. He's got her cut all open and everywhere. And Costume Co. How's the Man in Black not bled out? I don't know, unless you want to not like that story so much. I really don't want to bring that up. He got shot 5 times. Medical science, I guess. It seems pretty easy for them to heal, but they do have exposition in the first season that says, "Yeah, we've gone a far away." You should have said you could even get shot 5 times maybe in the future, and you'd be kind of cool. But yes, I take it as, it's like a pact. It's like, you had my daughter. I have, she's fighting for the host and for the memory of her daughter, even on her deathbed. When again, the parallel with the humans that we see, all they want to do is get rid of their daughter, obviously, and live beyond their wife. Like he says, I'm going to go screw my wife. I'm guessing that last one's not an option. He's like, nope. He's like, all right. He got over that. That's not even what makes him break down. It's like the dysphoria. You know what I mean? I think it's just showing that they love. That love is subjective, and it's, we can't devalue it. But it could go either way, and we'll do their breakdown videos that probably have a better take on it, so we'll rewatch.
That's true, and Laura D brings up that 50 Cent was shot 8 times and survived, so, I mean...
Well, it was his birthday, so, he can get shot if he wants to. Yeah, and he's going to fight MMA now, so that is true.
So, ultimately, as we wrap this episode up, what I do want to do, Justin, that you'll be happy about, is I want you to give a rating of this episode.
Ooh... So let's think. We haven't done a rating in a long time. Man, we're not consistent. I'll go edit them in. We did some ratings in the beginning. I think we were using 1 to 10 or 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
I think 1 to 5. Okay. There we go. Symmetry. I would say a 4 because I think a lot of people, even though it was a very moving show, that Ghost Nation, I saw a lot of people like kind of dreading it, but I thought it was beautiful. Because you can, because again, like with Shogun World, and I'll make it short, I promise. We've been going on forever. Like, I really felt like they injected that to show us, like, it was, that great stories and love and everything transcends time and culture and all that. So I was like, ooh, are we gonna I want to know about Ghost Nation, but I really don't want to like a Ken Burns documentary on them either. You know what I mean? Like, how much are we gonna get embedded in this? It was just a love story that did do what this is supposed to showcase, a narrative, a story that transcends time, culture. It didn't matter that he was Native American, Lakota, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got it. And it was beautiful. They didn't spend too much time saying, this is how we live, and this is how we've been doing this. They didn't spend any time doing that. He just did what he needed, and they surpassed that. And that has its issues as well. But also, we don't want a whole episode that explains everything. So, pick your poison. I loved it. I'd say a 4 out of 5 because I think it was a hard landing stick. And I think for the most part, all the the little things aside, very well. Just they shouldn't have the clear glass. I wish they didn't have the clear glass. What would you say?
I think, and I know that you guys are gonna hate me for this, and I'm sorry. I love you guys. I don't think it was a 4 out of 5. I think maybe it was a 2 or a 3 out of 5. So here's why. Because I'm relation to all of the all of the other episodes, I give it this low of a rating because and I might have a bias because I read an article about someone who watched the episode early and wrote a review or talked about it on Twitter, and they stated that this episode would be the equivalent of the door from Game of Thrones. If you don't recall, the door from Game of Thrones was when Hodor died.
It was a game changer.
I'm like, you can't. To compare the episodes, I'm just like losing my mind trying to figure out how this person thought that it would be that good or that impactful of an episode. And so I think maybe that takes away from my experience of it because I had this predisposition. And I think that that's also why I hate that people have such early access, even if they are esteemed reviewers or whatever. You get to be that.
Who's this guy writing for? Crazy, like, psychopath, like, weekly? Like, where was this written at?
I'm not gonna say who it was or anything like that. Because,
in my opinion, this season finale of season 1 is the closest thing you're gonna get, and because it was a game changer. Like the Hodor thing, like it changed our perspective. You know what I mean? This changed our perspective, but again, I don't like. Why am I comparing? I don't even like comparing the series. Don't read that. So I'm gonna find out who it is and put it in the info.
Ultimately, I think that like if Maeve died at the very end, or they did break her control unit open to kind of get the code out, it would have been that impactful. It would have been a hell of an episode, but that didn't happen. It kind of hinted that maybe that's going to happen, or maybe we might see that in her decay, her being used as a weapon, or I don't know. But so I think for me, that was the drawback and why I give it such a low rating, because if you compare it to like maybe the Riddle of the Sphinx, something that I consider, a 4 out of 5 to a 5 out of 5 episode, the Riddle of the Sphinx was so beautifully done. Now, I'm not saying that this wasn't bad, or that this was a bad episode. Just in comparison to some of the others, man, I just don't. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Brittle of the Sphinx is that introduced us to whole new concepts. In this episode, and there's something to say for closure. This filled in a lot of blanks, which we need. It wasn't like a big shocking because a lot of it, like I liked it because I was like, man, that's I've been overcomplicating it, but a lot of times I've said this. I'm like, it makes sense because they're outliers that they wouldn't have the heavy finger. I've said this out, look at the streams. I've said it a lot, they wouldn't have the fingerprints and everybody. It's common sense. I think we all agreed, that if anybody was going to have the least amount of like Delos influence, it would be Ghost Nation, because by the very nature of that culture that they're trying to replicate, sorry, it would be, easier to get by than like the main focus of, again, the big master plan, which is the best prostitution in the world. So yeah, I get what you're saying. And I went in with seeing somebody saying, ugh, Ghost Nation, I'll skip this one. And I was like, yeah, I bet people feel like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went in with opposites.
One thing I do want to pick up, and again, the emotional aspect of this episode is amazing. It is beautiful. The love interest, the idea that characters can fall in love and that be their cornerstone or their drive. It is there, and it is replicated, and it will be something that's important for hosts to know. But it just not my favorite episode. So Feewet, I do see your question. Is the Valley Beyond heaven, hell, purgatory / earth? All perspective.
Yeah, what's heaven to you? What's God to you? I mean, again, it's all these sound like easy questions to answer. It's this, but it means something like, yeah, perfectly said. All subjective. We don't know. I think it's the idea of something better.
So, and Mark, you did bring up 2.5 is a little harsh, or 2 out of 5 is a little harsh. 2 to 3. Maybe,
I would relate it to the Pariah.
2.9. 2.9.
Season 1 Pariah. I think it was episode 7 where they go to Pariah. I would compare it to that episode.
Yeah. So
that's a good episode.
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, it's hell. From what we think we know about it, it's hell because humans can't get to that yet, and they're going through the suffering potentially. It's heaven because if they get through that suffering, then they could potentially be human minds in host bodies. It's purgatory in the same sense that for both of those reasons, it's the middle ground in which you would become heaven or hell. And it's I guess it's not Earth. I don't think it's Earth. I mean, they're on Earth.
I think it's just the idea. The Valley Beyond is, something that is the threshold to something that allows a lot more freedom, and that where they don't have the control, meaning Delos. So I think that how they get there and what that means, because we got to think, what is are we just going on? They're still just selling information, or the main goal? Because even says James Delos was still a businessman. So they are mapping consciousness, but it's like, what is the QA so worried about losing? The mapping of the consciousness or the intellectual property, or just like the shame? You know what I mean? Like, what are they so worried? Like what are the implications? So we don't know. I think the Valley Beyond will be like them walking out, and then it'll go to black, and we'll find out a little bit about what's outside the park in season 3. I honestly think that this show maybe should have went with a little bit more of a slow burn. I'm loving it, but the Robot Revolution probably could have not jumped off so quick, because we do have 5 seasons in the outside world, and all that comes next season. It'll burn. It will. They know what they're doing. They had it planned. So
awesome. So I think that concludes.
Thank you for your patience on that. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. And again, we'll come out with our more fleshed out videos, but I think it was a beautiful story, and it patched things up. I think we're left to figure out what is the Valley Beyond, and what is Grace's intention, and where will these hosts end up, and what does that mean for the upcoming seasons. We got 2 episodes left. I'm pumped for it. Hax, thank you as always. We will be back next Sunday, and and I will be coming out with Lee Sizemore as a host. Everybody's a host video during the week, and going against everything I said. So because I'm a sellout. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to subscribe. If you're not subscribed to Hax, make sure to do that. Come back and see us. Enjoy your night.
Yep. Much love, everybody. Have a good night.